Hi, it's Mr. Black. This is Beyond Creepy, and in this video I'm going to be discussing a case from Tetbury, England. At 10:15 on the evening of March 24th, 1988, a man, Mr. R, was in the kitchen of his home, a rural area in Tetbury, England. He peered out his window and observed a light crossing a field some 300 yards away. He initially thought it was a lamp being carried by a shepherd rounding up his sheep for the night. This was the lambing season, so the flocks were vulnerable to attacks by foxes. Though there was something strange about the light. It was too high off the ground, about 10 feet he guessed. He watched the light move about the field for a period of time. Mr. R ventured outside and headed up a slope at the rear of his garden. He was hoping to get an elevated view down into the fields, but at the wall he could find no trace of the light. It was as if it had vanished. Then, to his utter shock, he suddenly found himself surrounded by a glow coming directly from above. He looked up and observed an object about twice the size of a football. The object gave off a glow that did not light the ground around him just 10 feet below. Mr. R then cried out, "What's going on?" To his amazement, he received a reply in a voice that sounded to him, quote, tinny and unnatural. Mr. R was insistent that the voice was real. He likened it to listening to someone talking through earphones. From there, he ended up having a conversation with this unknown entity, who spoke stilted and sometimes ungrammatical English. Mr. R noted that there was a brief delay between his questions and the answers, as if every response required careful thought. Mr. R, who transcribed the conversation immediately after, was able to reconstruct what was said almost word for word. It went as follows. "We are observing your world." "Well, you've come to the wrong part to see anything." "We know where we are." "When you say we, do you mean aliens or something?" "No, no aliens here. What you see is a probe, similar to how your scientists send out to observe other planets." "How can you understand me?" "Your voice is recorded on the probe and relayed to us for reply." "Oh, that's clever. But I'm not sure what's happening. Why are you observing us? What's the matter?" "You are gaining knowledge so fast and getting to the very basis of the structure of matter, and you could cause untold harms if you don't know what you are doing." "Well, I don't know much about that. I'm not a scientific man. I suppose it makes some sense." "If your species don't learn some sense, we will have to take measures against you." "What do you mean? Are you going to exterminate us?" "No, nothing like that. We'd have to take action to reduce your activities." "Could you do that?" "Oh yes, easily. Wouldn't take much to upset your order of things." "What would you propose to do then?" "You are very susceptible to bacteria and viruses. Something like that would cause disorganization." "You could introduce this into our world?" "Yes, of course." "How will we know it's you?" "You won't know. We don't propose to tell you." "Where are you operating from? Where are you?" "Ah, well, you're not clever enough to understand that, are you?" "I quite agree. I am not an astronomer." "Do you come from far away?" "Well, quite a distance." "Are you in what we call our solar system?" "We may be." "Farther afield?" "We may be. There's no point in asking such questions." "What is really the problem? How come you are allowing it to go on? Why not just nip it in the bud?" "Explain what you mean by nip it in the bud." "Alter it before it gets too far advanced." "Oh yes, we could do that." At that point, the light went out around Mr. R. The conversation was over.
In his book, UFO Complete Sightings, noted UFO debunker Peter Brooksmith claimed that the witness had believed that his encounter had something to do with the type of experimental aircraft from the nearby Kemble USAF base. He thought it might have been some kind of experimental craft or a drone. He thought it was one of ours. He didn't really think it was one of theirs. And Peter Brooksmith wondered if he came to that conclusion based on the fact that it was that the voice was speaking with an American accent. If this object was one of ours, you have to ask yourself, why hasn't there been a ton of reports similar to this? Why aren't people talking to objects the same way this witness did? This case is pretty rare. I don't really know too many others like it. I've heard of cases in which people claim that they've heard voices coming from a UFO. They've heard it in their head, basically warning them or telling them to not be frightened. But this one is strange in that the witness seemed to have this long-running conversation with this object. So it kind of makes me wonder if it really was one of ours, and if it was one of theirs, if the object was from somewhere else. And the things it was saying is quite frightening, and it doesn't speak well for our future, as you know, for the future of humanity.